Hi everyone, it's Franny from Heidi and Franny's Garage, and today I'm underneath the Mini. And the reason why, well, I think I'll let Heidi answer that one.
Well, my Mini Cooper let me down today. This car is only 5 years old, and I believe that something just happened with the transmission. It only has maybe 25,000 miles on it. So Franny, actually we came on an errand to go to the hardware store. Luckily we were both here. We were able to push the car, and now Doug is on his way to see if he can't tow us home. So anyway, I just wanted to give you guys an update. Car looks great, just not acting great. Anyway, stay tuned.
So it turns out, I don't think it is actually the transmission that's bad on the car, but it is pretty severe. I think what happened is we snapped a half shaft up here. So this joint, the outer CV joint on the car, appears to be completely shot. So it left us stranded, and we did have to have Doug come tow us home. So I've got the car back up on the lift, and today I'm going to go through, I've never done this before, but it'll be interesting. I'm going to go through the replacement of this half shaft. So this will be useful to anyone who needs to, say, replace a CV booty as well. It'd be kind of the same sort of process. I have a full brand new half shaft that I'm going to install, so I'm not going to fuss with actually greasing the CV joints and all that fuss. I'm just going to pull the old one out and put the new one in. So that's up next on Heidi and Franny's Garage. Tools and parts I know we'll need. We need a torque wrench, a 21 millimeter to take off the bottom ball joints, a 32 millimeter socket to take off the axle bolt and to reassemble it. We've got our parts tray back there with the anti-seize. We're going to need that for the splines, I think. Some rubber gloves, a large ratchet, strong ratchet for getting some of these bigger bolts off, a rubber hammer for banging the axle through the carrier when we loosen it up, the new half shaft. So this is the left front half shaft on the Mini, and some roll towel and some rags. Our first step is going to be to pull the center hub cover off the wheel here, and then the axle bolts in there. Now it's been sort of crimped down, so I'm going to have to kind of push that up and loosen that bolt. We want to do that with the tire still on the ground. It'll be a heck of a lot easier than trying to do it once we've jacked this wheel up. You can see that it's been sort of crimped down here and sort of peened on a little bit. We're going to get a screwdriver onto that, pop that up a little bit, and then get our big socket on there and loosen this bolt up. I've got my safety glasses on, so we'll go ahead and try a couple of things. I've got a couple of punches and an old screwdriver. See what makes short work of this. Try the punch first. And I'll use my rubber hammer. Alright, well that's doing nothing. Okay. Looks like we need a bigger hammer. I'm going to try my punch with a real live hammer. Alright, so we can get the screwdriver in there a little bit. There's still a little bump here. Okay. I think we're all set to actually turn this thing off now. In order to get this bolt off, I'm going to go ahead and use a breakover bar and our big socket. We'll see how hard this thing is to get off. It should be torqued around 135 foot-pounds or so. See if I can put enough power in to get this thing off or not. Oh, there it goes. That was pretty easy. Kind of expected more fuss. Okay, then with that, Liz, we'll go ahead and take this opportunity to crack the wheel bolts off as well, because we're going to need to take this wheel off. Next we're going to raise the car up. We need to get this wheel off the ground, get the wheel off, and we're going to drive this axle through the carrier back here. and see what other fuss we have to go through to get this axle off. So, with our rear wheel chocked and our jack in place, we're ready to go. We're going to end up putting it up on a jack stand, so I'm going to be using the jack tray that's underneath the car on the lift. So that ought to be kind of interesting. Okay, I have my jack stand and I want to get it positioned right here, I think. This is a very, very strong member. A lot of things bolted to it. I think it'll be great. So I don't want to mar the surface too bad here, so I'm going to also put a towel over it. All right. Here like that. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and lower the jack so that the car goes down on the jack stand. Then I'm going to go ahead and cinch the jack back up a bit just as a secondary backup. Okay, with our jack stand in place here and holding the majority of the weight of the car and my jack as a backup over here, I think we're ready to take the wheel off and get started getting this axle out. At this point, we'll go ahead and remove our wheel. And now we can remove our axle bolt. So I think next what I'm going to do is remove this bolt on the steering arm to get this out of the way so I can easily turn this back and forth. And then there's two bolts underneath here I need to take off as well. So we're going to start with this one right here. So this is an 18mm bolt we're going to be taking off. Okay. Next I'm going to pound it down a little bit with my plastic hammer. Wow. Okay. Maybe not. Okay, so what I'm going to try next for this thing is I'm going to put a little PT blaster on it to try and loosen it up a little bit, and then I'm going to hit it with a real hammer, but I'm going to use a piece of hardwood over it. I do not want to mar the top of this whatsoever because it's got to go back up in there, and if we flatten this thing out, I'll never get it back in. So, okay, so here we go. I've got my safety glasses as well. A little awkward. There we go. Okay, so now we have our steering knuckle bit out of the way, and we should be able to turn this. Yep, look at that. Okay, fabulous. Oh my, you can hear that crunchy crunchy in there, huh? Our next step is there's some bolts underneath here that we need to take off, a couple of them, and then we can loosen this entire control arm up and move it out of the way, and we're going to pound our axle through, and we should be able to get this whole mess. Once we get this bit up and over here a little bit, we should be able to get this axle out in this way, and that's the plan at least. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is push that axle through. Well, that wasn't too bad. Alright, just use an old extension here. The two bolts we're going to be taking off underneath this carrier here are 21mm. Okay, we're just going to pop this carrier down. Hopefully. There it goes. Okay, go back through. There we go. Just push it through. Wonderful. Okay. That's probably bad. Look at that. Holy cow, huh? All right. So at this point, I believe what I'm going to do is bungee this guy up out of the way a little bit and work on getting this axle out. One thing you do want to be a little careful of, this is the actual flexible brake line. You don't want to put too much stress on it. It's fine. It's nice and loose still. Looks like we have plenty of room here to get our axle out. Now I know it separates on the other side and there's a little circlip inside there. So I think what I'm probably going to do is just get a wedge tool in there and sort of pop it out. And hopefully the entire thing will come out all by itself. Alright, we're going to try and use a wedge tool here and pry this axle out, get it off that circlip. I'm going to put too much pressure on it. It's the case of the transmission. There it goes. Okay, there we go. We got it. We're going to watch this little mechanism down here. We don't want to break anything on the way out. Alright. That's one thing I forgot. They warned me of that. When you pull this axle out, there's a bit of oil in the transmission that's going to come out through this hole. So that's kind of a bummer, huh? So I'm going to go ahead and put the new axle right back in just to minimize the amount of oil that's coming out. Now having the car jacked up on one side does actually help. And we have a little puddle starting on the ground, so I need to get to that. Alright, so we slide our new axle in. Okay, well I think I got it in. I lined it up a bit and then kind of used the axle a bit to sort of gently push it in. It feels like it's in to me. It doesn't want to come back out either, which is good. So it should be sitting on its ring clip. And there, alright, okay, great. Okay, our next step is going to be to get the axle back into the carrier. I'm going to put a little bit of Never Seez on these splines because I just don't want them rusting themselves in place. The trick with the Never Seez is you just don't need much. It's not something you goop on at all. You just want a very light coating. And you only need to really do it here. It's going to move, when it goes through, it'll push it down. Okay. Now we don't want to get it on the actual threads of the axle here because that can mess up the torque value when we go to retorque this bolt. Alright, we'll go ahead and pull our carrier back into place. We'll have to get this through the hole there. That should be exciting. Oh, it's actually not that bad. There we go. There we go. And there's our bolt coming through. Yay! Put our nut on. So let's go ahead and hook our bottom ball joint back in, again with the two bolts that we took out, and then we're going to do our steering knuckle after that. Alright, this guy goes on and comes down. Alright. Bolt back on. The torque value I found for these is 41 foot-pounds, so I'll go ahead and torque those down. There we go. There we go. Want to take one quick look underneath here to make sure everything else is okay. We've got our rod back on, of course, and just watching things as they move. We want to make sure our brake lines are good, the other electrical connections, that we didn't harm anything while we're in the process of this whole thing. All looks good. The CV joint looks like it's turning nicely and feels pretty good and solid in there. Well, the next bit's going to be to put this steering knuckle back on, so let's push that up. Grab our nut that goes on the top here. I want to pull on everything and make sure that I don't feel anything loose coming off here at all. This should turn. I don't have the car in gear, so it should turn nicely. Shouldn't hear any clunking noises or anything like that. All right. Okay, so one last thing, since I've had my grimy hands all over this rotor, I'm going to go ahead and hit it with a little bit of brake cleaner and clean things off. Well, we're almost done. So I think at this point, all we're going to need to do is to put the wheel back on, believe it or not, and then we'll go ahead and lower the car back down, and we've got to torque this bolt to about 136-ish foot-pounds, something like that, and of course torque our wheel bolts. And then when we're done, we're going to peen this down a little bit here, right in this notch, to get it to sit in here so that there's no chance that this bolt will loosen itself back up. Okay, so we have our wheel back on. We're going to go ahead and lower the car back down onto the wheel and torque our center hub nut here. Torque wrench is set to 136 foot-pounds. Here we do here. Okay. There we go. Clicky click. We've got 136 foot-pounds in on this nut, so the last thing we have to do is sort of peen down the top so it can't work its way back out. Want to make sure we have our safety glasses in for this. I'm going to use just a punch here. There we go. And that's all for that. We'll go ahead and torque the wheel bolts in, and we should be ready to check this out. Remember, when we pulled the axle out, we lost a little bit of transmission fluid as well, so I'm going to need to top that off. Okay, we're all set to retorque the wheel bolts. Okay. And now we can put our hub cover back on. The hubs on these particular wheels on the Mini actually have a little notch here. And every time I take the car down to get the wheels done or whatever, tires or whatever done, they always manage to put this thing on wrong or jack it up. So you want to spin it a little bit until you feel it lock into that notch and then push it in the rest of the way. Otherwise you'll just bend the crap out of it. Okay, well I think we're all done here actually. I'm going to take the car out and do a little test drive, and then like I said, I'm going to have to top off the transmission fluid a little bit. But I just want to make sure the car is working properly before I go ahead and do all that. But hope you enjoyed the video. It's something I've never done before, so this was absolutely new to me. So I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please give the video a thumbs up. And if you got any questions or comments, and I would imagine you would, just leave them in the comment section below, and I'll go ahead and get to them and answer them for you. So are you curious as to what happened to this thing? Look at this. This is just nuts. I'm super curious. So as a little bonus, I thought it'd be fun. Let's go ahead and take this thing apart and see just how this thing failed. Now, just to give you a little bit of history, this is the absolute original part that came on the car. The car has about 20,000 miles and it's a 2012, and this is just about the end of July 2017. So it's not a very old part, and there's really very little reason why this thing should have failed. Let's go ahead and take it apart and see what we got. There we go. There's one. Okay. Oh my gosh, here we go. You know what makes me wonder? I'm making a guess here. I'm wondering now if it was just the ring clip on the end that came off. That's definitely, there is no ring clip. It's definitely off. Oh, this poor spline. Oh, it looks a little chewed up. So the spline looks pretty chewed up in here. And you know what? There is a bit of the ring clamp in here as well. Oh my. Yeah, this looks pretty chewed up. Okay, well let's continue with this and see what we've got. Pull this boot off. Should be able to get to this. There we go. Oh. Oh no. Look at that. Ruh-roh. Let's see what we've got here. It's missing a ball. Look at this. This is great. Look at this. An actual ball came out of this thing. So I don't know if you've ever seen the inside of one of these CV joints. They've got an outer bit here and an inner carrier, and then these large balls that are almost the size of pinballs, and they roll inside slots in these things as they move back and forth. But I'm going to have to clean this up a bit to get some of this grease out and see what we've got. I'm very curious. It looks like it tossed one of its balls. All right, well, the ball is missing in here, right in there. So that's interesting. So it's missing a ball in this slot here. So that's this ball that popped out, and it's missing from this slot. How it managed to do that, I don't know. Now the way you get these things out is you turn them quite a bit past where they would ever turn if they were in the car, and you should be able to roll the balls out of it. And then you can take the entire thing apart. There, like that. You can rotate this guy out like that, and then you can pull the balls out and pull the cage out as you go. There they go. They're just going to kind of fall away inside there. There's another one. There we go. Okay. So the cage doesn't look too bad. Doesn't look too chewed up or anything. It's interesting. Outside. Let's see what this inner... Well, this doesn't look too bad either, actually. There's a little, you can probably see a little slot in there. So this would go on the end of this shaft like this, and the ring that's here will ride in this slot in here. All right, ew. Okay. So after looking at all these parts, they don't look too bad, really. I don't see any real wear. They obviously still had plenty of grease in them. They weren't overheating. My guess is that this ring on the outside of here let loose. And it must have popped off. It must have come off this shaft. It had to have. Somehow, because it should be on about right there, because there's a slot right there, and it would have gone in as far, and this ring would have locked in the slot. But this ring doesn't feel that great, and I wonder if the ring just broke. Well, the ring doesn't look like I kind of messed it up as I was taking it off a bit, but it doesn't look as though it's broken at all. So I'm a little confused as to how this thing managed to pop this guy off, but it obviously did. This axle, you can see it is just totally chewed up there. I don't know how well you can see this, but the ends of this spline is just completely eaten. It's just a disaster. This thing is just completely chewed up. So. And that was probably just because when we started the car, it was going grind, 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 grind. And this was probably just sitting barely in here. And it was just banging off the end of this thing. I don't see any wear on the star at all. So it just ate the shaft. Oh well. Okay, well, I wouldn't exactly say mystery completely solved. But as we took it apart, it had a ball that fell out of it. So obviously that was bad, and the shaft came out of the star carrier, so that was it. It's a little sad for 20,000 miles, I think, on a CV joint. I don't know why it was able to do that. It just doesn't seem good to me, but okay. So we have our new one in, and we're all set. So okay, well, kind of a yucky job. All right, well, thanks so much for watching and safe travels. Bye.